question is that the amendments... No, sorry. I call the member for Indi, sorry.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I move amendments 1 to 3 as circulated in the name of the member for Warringah together.
The question is that the amendments be disagreed to. All those in favour say aye. Sorry. I call the member for Warringah, sorry. I call the member for Warringah.
Speaker. Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. These amendments will improve the functioning of the EFA by prohibiting taxpayer handouts to fossil fuel projects overseas, as well as improving EFA's transparency and accountability. Taxpayer money should not be wasted on assets that will be stranded, especially as we get close to $1 trillion in public debt. Agencies like EFA should also be transparent with the public about their activities and if they are making potentially loss-making investments. Research, so items 1 and 3, research conducted by Jubilee Australia has found that over 100 potential fossil fuel transactions that could not be properly identified due to poor disclosure requirements for EFA and an inability to FOI documents because EFA's commercial and national interest accounts are exempted. Further, it's the purpose of this bill to allow the ability for EFA to make equity investments which will increase risk profile of transaction, and we get the compounded effect of riskier investments with a lack of transparency. The Australian people have no idea where money is going and potentially losses are being incurred in their name. Any changes to equity investment ability must therefore be matched with corresponding changes to transparency provisions. To promote transparency, removal of the FOI exemption was a recommendation of the Productivity Commission in 2012 review and of the operations. The Productivity Commission stated as a reason for this that FOI Act exemptions reduce the ability of the public and the Australian Parliament to examine facilities for their environmental, social and human rights impact. Items 1 and 3 of these amendments will therefore amend the Freedom of Information Act 1982 to remove the Freedom of Information exception provided to Part 4 of the Export Finance and Insurance Corporation Act 1991. After commencement of the bill, around 90% of the transactions would be able to be FOI'd under this change. This is an important amendment. Importantly, the exception of Part 5 of the EFIC Act, National Interest Accounts, remains in force, which would still provide important national security safeguards. Part 4 of the EFIC Act will also still be protected by existing FOI safeguards under Section 33 and 47 of the FOI Act. Deputy Speaker, the Australian public have no idea of the true extent of money being spent on fossil fuels through EFA. They deserve to know. It is simply remarkable that EFA has operated for this long in the dark. Items 2, 3 and 4, we are experiencing rapid alarming warming that jeopardises Australia's safety, security and future prosperity. It is clear from the recent IPCC report and from the advice from the International Energy Agency that we must rapidly transition away and stop funding fossil fuels. Item 2 will therefore introduce a third schedule to the bill and introduces a definition of fossil fuel-based infrastructure and fossil fuels, which items 2 substitutes the definition for Northern Australian economic infrastructure. 2.3 and 2.4 makes clear there will be prohibition on any assistance, direct and indirect, given by EFA for fossil fuel-based infrastructure. That includes guarantees, indemnity, loans, insurance, reinsurance, financial services, financial products, subsidies, or investment for the purpose of supporting extraction, transportation of fossil fuels and energy generation. We must stop our fossil fuel spending spree, and these amendments will do just that. So I call on both sides of the House, and in particular the opposition Labor, if you are genuine in your commitment to transitioning to a low emissions and dealing with the IPCC very real warning, then we cannot continue to fund fossil fuels. Thank you.
I thank the member for Warringah and I call the member for Indi.